upon every act that he does, a ritualistic killing, as it were. You know, in the old pagan ceremonies, they would sacrifice somebody, and they would always do it according to a set pattern, a ritual. That ritual involved maybe symbols, or it involved certain days of the year, or it involved certain signs that were given to us in the stars. And what we're going to examine in this episode of the Watchman broadcast, we're going to examine the ritual killings that have taken place, or certain rituals that have been done for let's say the last 40 some odd years, maybe close to 50. Rituals that have been performed that sort of bear the same mark. I have up here on the screen, I have numbers for you. We see the number 11. We're going to see those again. The number 33, we've already talked about that. The number 72, that shows up quite a bit. The number 77 shows up an awful lot in some of these rituals that have been done. The number 23 and the number 46, they tend to go hand in hand, dealing with the chromosome pairs, either 23 pairs of chromosomes, which would be 46 in total. And we're just going to look at some things that have taken place over the last few years that have to do with these numbers, why they're important, the steps that we're being taken on, and where it's all going to end. Let's go back to 1963. Let's go back to Pope John the 23rd, who died in 1963. Pope John the 23rd. And in the interim time between Pope John the 23rd and Pope Paul, you have something that Malachi Martin was a Jesuit priest, a former Jesuit priest, that knew of something that took place in the interim period between Pope John the 23rd and Pope Paul. During that time, a ceremony that took place. There was a sacrifice made. There was a dog, and there was a sort of a joint ceremony between some celebrants in the Vatican. I believe he mentioned Pope Paul's Cathedral in the Vatican, or excuse me, the Cathedral of St. Paul in the Vatican. And he also mentioned a Roman Catholic Church here in America, a joint ceremony taking place back in 1963. We don't know exactly what date it was, but in 1963, after John the 23rd died, a ceremony took place that Malachi Martin referred to as the enthronement ceremony of the fallen angel Lucifer. Now, this ceremony included a young girl. It included priests who were also Freemasons, both in the Vatican and in St. Paul's Cathedral, and in a Roman Catholic church in Charleston, South Carolina. Why Charleston, South Carolina? Because when you practice rituals, you also practice what's called geomancy. In other words, witchcraft or power that's given to you by devils because of the particular location you're in. In this case here, Charleston, South Carolina, was the place. There's actually a Masonic lodge in Charleston, South Carolina called the Mother Lodge of the Southern Jurisdiction. Charleston, South Carolina is on the 33rd parallel. This is why this particular place was chosen to perform this particular ritual. They sacrificed a dog and raped a child in this particular thing, and they called it the enthronement ceremony of the fallen angel Lucifer. Now, something happened a few days ago. On May 1st, they beatified Pope John Paul II. Basically what they're saying is, we recognize now that Pope John Paul II is in heaven, and he was a really swell guy. He is a glorified person, and he is like real close to becoming a god. That's what sainthood is all about. They say when Pope John Paul II is declared a saint, then you can pray to him, and he will hear your prayers. Don't believe that, okay? But on May 1st, the same day they announced Bin Laden. On May 1st, they did what's called the beatification of Pope John Paul II. But let's get back to the guy that came before Pope John Paul II. It was Pope John Paul the first, okay, the guy that came before him, he was elected, and there, if I remember right, there was, I mean, they could not find a guy to be pope, and all of a sudden this guy shows up, and they says, you know what, we'll just pick him. So they picked this guy. He was a cardinal, an Italian cardinal, Albino Luciani, I think was what his name was. The smiling pope, everybody called him, and everybody just loved him. Always so smiling, he's so nice. Even though he's an idol worshiper, hey, he's a nice guy. And so they elected him to be pope. And Albino Luciani started digging into some things that he probably shouldn't have dug into. He found out some things. He found out, number one, that there was a mafia control of the Vatican Bank. He found out that there was a lot of Freemasons in the Vatican called the P2. And he said, you know what, we're not supposed to be Masons. We're not supposed to be that. Then he found out about the enthronement ceremony of the fallen angel Lucifer. And he was going to clean house in the Vatican. He was going to get rid of the Secretary of State. He was going to get rid of a lot of people that were in control in the Vatican. 33 days after he became Pope, he died. No autopsy was performed, nothing. And it's just interesting to me that the very next day, Pope John Paul I was going to announce that he was going to get rid of some people in the Vatican. He was going to clean house in the Vatican. 33 days later, he died. By the way, you see the hand gesture here of Pope John Paul I and Lady Gaga. You see that? That is the papal blessing. They say it represents the Trinity, but I want you to follow this with me, because here we have the first 1, 2, 3 degrees of Freemasonry, and it deals with the story of Hiram Abiff. We've dealt with this symbol before, the blessing, as above, so below, but it deals with this number 3 in the triquetra, and the number 3 in the Bible. The meaning of the number 3 in the Bible is lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. In other words, it's a reference to who the real Hiram Abiff is. The man of sin, the son of perdition. 33 days after he became Pope, he's dead because of a secret, because of a ritual that was performed. Same year, 1963, after Pope John the 23rd died, and then there was this enthronement ceremony of the fallen angel Lucifer. We have another death. And I want you to watch this, okay? We have another death that takes place in Dallas, Texas. John Fitzgerald Kennedy. He is slain in Dallas, Texas, right close to the 33rd parallel. On November the 22nd, 11 plus 22 is 33. That's how they do things. You got to read their literature. This is how secret societies and mystery cults see dates. They see dates as numbers. They see them that on certain days, certain powers are given if you perform the right ritual. A ritual takes place in Dallas, Texas, November the 22nd, and 3 shots that we know of. There may have been 4, some say there was 5, but 3 shots that are undisputed. 3. The 3 ruffians. And first, Kennedy is injured in the neck. That's where Hiram Abiff was first injured. And then secondly, some say another shot rang out, or the same bullet, or who knows, but it ends up going through Texas Governor John Connally in the chest. And then a 3rd shot. Maybe it was the 4th, who knows, but we know 3. And Kennedy receives a wound in his head. A deadly wound in his head. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention that John Fitzgerald Kennedy was exactly 46 years old when this took place. And it took place at Dealey Plaza. Do you see the number 3 here anywhere? Okay? It's called the Triple Underpass. These 3 highways converging together, and that is the precise location of the death or the murder, the ritual